Hi, everyone. I'm Diane Brady here at Forbes. I'm with Steve Price, our senior contributor. I'm going to call you football writer since we're talking World Cup and it's the real football. So, Steve, we're going into, at this point, Sunday with a matchup between France and Argentina. Tell us more about these two teams. How do they stack up financially?
Right, so yeah, these are two of the biggest teams in the tournament. When we look at all of the values of the teams, most people have said England were the most valuable team. Both Lloyd's, the insurers, said that, and CEIS Football Observatory, who kind of value team players, also had them as the top one, followed by then France and then Brazil. So France have they have the most valuable team in the final. Argentina were ranked eighth on this list, so their team's slightly less valuable, but they're still among those kind of top sides when it comes to team value. That team value kind of is made up mainly by the players' age, contract length, the club they play for, and the league they play in. So, because of those factors, it's maybe not the best way to judge 100% which team's going to win the final. And when you look at the players involved, of course, France's Kylian Mbappe is the most valuable player in the world. He's been valued at around $220 million. But when you look at Argentina's their most valuable player, Lautaro Martinez, has hardly played actually in this World Cup. He's only played about
Mm-hmm.
200 minutes. So even basing things on the most valuable player maybe is not the best move. Lionel Messi, of course, is Argentina's star player, but
Mm-hmm.
because he's already at the end of his career, his value is seen as very low.
I want to distinguish between value and pay. So the most valuable player is not necessarily the highest paid player, correct? Like in terms of their professional careers elsewhere, because I mean, they're coming from professional teams. These guys is often, the European leagues. Is that how do they? Value is a much more subjective calculation from what it sounds like.
Sure. So value would be how much the player could be sold to another team for if they were bought on the market. And of course, pay is totally different. Lionel Messi's value is very low. His pay is extremely high at Paris Saint-Germain. And
Mm-hmm.
so because of that, you have a bit of a disparity there. And when it comes to pay, these players are paid so much by their clubs that almost the money they get from the World Cup doesn't mean too much to them.
Who is the highest paid player, or who are some of the highest paid players in this World Cup?
Right, so still Lionel Messi's paid a huge amount by Paris Saint-Germain, and actually all of their star players, like Neymar as well, have very high paychecks and Kylian Mbappe.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been the players raking in the money recently, but at this time everybody's kind of changing. So Cristiano Ronaldo, at the end of this World Cup, is going to be the lowest paid player in the World Cup because he's leaving his team and leaving his contract, and then maybe a week or two later will become the highest paid player in the world because he'll be joining a new club, possibly in Saudi Arabia,
Mm-hmm.
and possibly signing a huge contract because of that.
And let me step back a second and ask about the insurance because I'm curious about that. Is every team insured, and are they insured the same way you'd insure Betty Grable's legs? I mean, how do they actually insure these teams?
Exactly. If you're going to buy a player for $200 million or something, you're going to want to have them insured. So they're yeah, they're insured in their contracts, and yeah, all the teams have insurance in case a player gets injured, so that they don't lose any money. If a player gets injured at the World Cup, FIFA actually has to pay out money to their club team, and so any player who's got injured, their club teams will be receiving millions of dollars sometimes in compensation for those injuries.
And there's the money that I'm sure all this is set by FIFA, but can you talk a little bit about the prize? Is it going to be dispensed or dispersed, excuse me, in the same way if each team wins, or do they get to decide who gets what?
Right. So yeah, if the total prize fund is about $440 million, and the winners obviously get more. They get about $42 million, which is about 1.6 million per player out of the 26-man squad. But of course, players also receive appearance fees from their national football associations, and they've got lots of lucrative sponsorship deals. If you win the World Cup or do very well, you're more likely to get those deals in the upcoming years. Because players get so much though from their club teams, they don't really worry too much about this money. So a lot of players actually give this to charity. We saw Kylian Mbappe gave his money from the last World Cup to charity. We had England and Croatia, their national teams also did that in the last World Cup. And in the US, because of this disparity between the women's and men's game in terms of FIFA's prizes, the US has decided that they will split the money that they receive. So a lot of that money will go towards the women's team. And then when the women's team play in their World Cup in 2023, if they get prize money, that will be split with the men's team.
So I know there is quite a disparity there.